What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. As I promised you in the review I did of the CVO Street Glide, I want to compare it against a Street Glide Special. Now, depending on the color that you choose for your Street Glide Special, you're going to be at about a $13,500 difference in these two bikes. So the goal of this video today is see if we can find that extra $13,500 to see if the CVO is worth it or if the Street Glide Special is going to be a better fit for you personally. Now, really quickly, before we jump into that, I want to remind you guys to check out First Manufacturing. They make premium motorcycle riding apparel. They make casual apparel as well. If you use my code SNIPES15 at checkout, that's going to save you guys 15% on your total purchase. Let's jump into the video. Okay, before we start comparing things, we'll do a quick walk around of the two. I mean, already you're seeing a huge difference because the paint on the CVO just pops so much more than the Special. Also, I wanted to use a blacked out Street Glide Special, but this is the only Special we have right now. Like I said in the beginning of the video, bikes are hard to come by, so we're using what we have. Hey, at least we have one, right? So I'll kind of show you the bikes from all sides the best I can to kind of compare them. And the reason that I say I wanted to use a blacked out one, part of that is the forks, which obviously we'll point out in just a minute. On the chromed out Street Glide Specials, you still get those machined lower legs, whereas on the blacked out Street Glide Special, you get the black fork legs like the ones that are on the CVO, which makes a huge difference cosmetically to me when you're just looking at the bike from a distance. So as I'm sure you've noticed, good many differences in these two bikes. So it's going to take us a minute to go through these, but that's what you're here for, right? Okay, so let's start with one thing. These bikes, same frame, pretty much everything's going to be the same. Obviously, the engine is different. On the Street Glide Special, you're going to have the 114 cubic inch Milwaukee 8, whereas on the CVO, you're going to have the 117 cubic inch Milwaukee 8. But other than that, everything's going to be the same. It's a lot of fit and finish difference, honestly, is kind of what we're looking at on this to see if we can find that $13,000 price difference. So we'll start with the wheels. Two very different wheels, but honestly, this one is a toss-up. I think it's going to come down to personal preference. I like these wheels on the CVO. Like I said in my review, I did a full review on this CVO as a standalone video. I'm a big fan of these wheels, guys, not just for Harley or for this bike, but in general. I think they did a great job on those wheels. However, I don't dislike these whatsoever either. I think they look really good. The other ones seem a little bit stronger to me, and what I mean by that is the spokes kind of come down to a pretty narrow point here and then make, you know, fewer contacts on the outside of the wheel. And I'm no engineer, in case you haven't guessed, so I don't know, you know, structural integrity wise what that would actually mean, or if that would translate, or if there is a difference, because these are thin as well, as you can see, but it's just this seems like it makes more contact and it's a little bit thicker here. So don't listen to me as far as how strong or durable the wheels are, but styling wise, I kind of like the ones that are on the CVO, as well as these brake rotors. So I like this solid centerpiece here. I think that looks really good versus your Street Glide Special where it's cut out. I mean, that's cool too, weight savings, what have you, but I tend to like the one that's on the CVO. Like I mentioned a second ago, these lower fork legs on the Specials, I really wish Harley would offer these in chrome. If you get the chromed out version of the Special, it would make such a huge difference on this bike, and it's a pretty big pain for the customer to have to do that. So I'd like to see Harley do it from the factory, because if you get the black Special, you do get the black lower legs like on the CVO, so I'm not sure why they've done that. I also want to point out the lights on the front of this. So on my video review of the CVO Street Glide, I was not familiar with this headlight. So it is a Daymaker style headlight, but these additional little LED bulbs, which are hard to pick up on camera with all the reflection, I asked people to help me out with that. I mean, even this little ring around the edge, wasn't familiar with when they started doing that, and I wasn't sure if that's what the new like Daymaker was or if this was a special light. But as you can see from the Street Glide Special, that's the Daymaker that I'm familiar with. So that must be a CVO only style Daymaker. I'm sure you could buy it, but I mean, this one, I know when this one came out, it was like 500 bucks, and I think it's about the same. So I would hate to see what that other one cost. And as you've probably noticed, halogen turn signals, which I always slam Harley for in these videos, but on the CVO, not the case. So fairings on these bikes, gonna be exactly the same, obviously just painted different. You do get the same vent, different windshield, fairing and all that is the same though. So you get this nice contoured windshield over here on the CVO, because if you got your standard windshield here on the Street Glide, this fairing blocks so much wind. On my Street Glide, I never really cared. I always ran that stock fairing because or the stock windshield rather. I like that it's smoked. I like that it's low profile. When it was super cold, so for me, like once it starts getting below like 50, 45 maybe, I would switch to a taller windshield that had a little more kick, and that kept more of the wind off of you. One thing to keep in mind when you're swapping out your windshields is you need either tall or short based on your height, because what you don't want is the top of this windshield right in your line of sight. You either want to look over a windshield or through it. You don't want to have to kind of compete with it. So keep that in mind. I know most dealerships, I know Timms does it for sure, have demo windshields. You come in, they'll put it on your bike, you can ride with it and see if it's gonna suit your needs before you buy it, and that's a really nice feature. One last thing while we're on the fairings, you do get this nice metal trim piece here on the CVO, and I like that they did that because it's always felt like on the Street Glide models, both standard and special, you get these black screws that look like they came from the local hardware store, but just this little indentation here makes it look like something's missing, like you took some kind of trim off and never put it back on. And they do sell, you know, chrome and black, and I'm sure aftermarket companies make all kind of different designs and stuff on there. So you can change it and put whatever you want, but I wish Harley would have done one from the factory, because this is a really nice touch. Not to mention on this particular bike, the black and the white with the contrast, it just kind of ties everything in. So good job on that one, Harley. Now on your Street Glide Special, you do get the painted inner fairing. However, it's never painted to match unless you just happen to get a black bike, and then it's going to be gloss black and it will match. All the specials have painted fairings and they are all painted gloss black, which looks nice. But one thing I've found is it's not a huge deal. So don't make this into a thing, you know, like, oh, don't get a special because of this. But I notice when I ride the standards, it's got the matte finish on the inner fairing, which doesn't reflect the sun into your face as much. Now, the only time you're really noticing that is when the sun is literally right behind you, hitting your dash. So it's not a thing. It's not, oh, the specials, because the Road Glides have it too. Before we jump into the comments, Street Glide versus Road Glide, which I've also done a video on, and the comments got fun when I compared those two. It's got the same thing, not a huge deal, just something I've noticed. Point being, guys, I think this inner fairing looks really nice. I think the gauges look great. You've kind of got these like chrome trim rings. I like the font that they've used for all the numbers. Speaker grills look good. Everything back here looks really good. However, when you move over here, let's climb on this bike so we can get a better shot. And this video is probably not doing it justice. These gauges are like something out of a sports car or like a really high-end watch. They are just absolutely next level. You see you have this very contrast looking, feels like, hard to say if that's really thin metal or if it's plastic. Either way, it looks really good. Speaker grills look better. Another big difference here on the CVO though is going to be the Rockford Fosgate Collab speakers that they've done with Harley for these bikes. These things sound amazing. I never had a problem with Harley's factory speakers, which they've upgraded, you know, throughout the years. I never had an issue on a Street Glide wearing a helmet, possibly doing triple-digit numbers on the highway. I could always hear my music without having it all the way cranked up. These are on a complete another level though. You definitely don't need to turn these all the way up, and this being a CVO, you are going to have the speakers and the bag lids as well. So audio definitely not a problem on the CVO, but the point of this quick little comparison was just to show you guys the back of these fairings. The mirrors I pointed out in my CVO video, but I want to show you in case you haven't seen those. So the way these mount to me looks really good. I'm a big fan of how these operate. So they're a little stiff just because this bike is new, and also so that way when you move it where you want it, it's not moving around. But these are really clean. This is a metal bracket here. Your mirrors are metal. It's got a really nice shape and look to it. Compared to the Street Glide Special, these don't look bad until you look at the CVOs. And these still move fine. They're gonna stay in place. They're not gonna move around. But man, talk about a big difference in fit and finish. Probably about the same size mirror real estate wise. I think this Special is gonna give you just a little bit more, but I kinda like the low profile look of that CVO. On Street Glides, I tend to prefer a 12-inch handlebar. If you do that, you're going to put your hands right here in front of the mirror so you can't see anything. The fix for that is you take these off, and if they're the ones from the Special, you throw them in the garbage. No, I'm just kidding. But they make a plug that goes in here that fills in that hole. And then what I've done is taken stock mirrors off of, say like a Softail. We'll use this lowrider for example. You take these mirrors, or this style mirror, you can take whatever kind you want, but these are readily available because people always change them out. Take this side, the right side, put it on the left, but have it hanging down. So then the left will go to the right, and it's gonna mount in that same hole. You can't see with the keys here. It's gonna mount in that same hole there, but then it will hang down in here. Some guys say they can't see well like that. I could see better. The point of that is when you look at this bike from the front, if you go with 12-inch bars and then you mount your mirrors, they do have the hole. You can see you can mount them, you know, just straight how it comes. If you mount them up, it sticks over the front of the fairing and it just looks like ears or something on some kind of animal. So if you drop them below, it keeps the front of that bike looking really clean. Now, as far as the tanks on these bikes, with the new console that Harley's done on these bikes for 21, you see how low profile that is compared to, I don't have one on the floor to show you how they used to look, but this looks so much better. And then on your bigger console, you had your gas cap built into the center here, which didn't look bad, and it kept your tank clean. However, now they've moved it off to the right. And I've always said, if you get this, you know, if it's your deal and you want, you know, clean, simple lines, go with the flush mount gas cap, and you will still see it. You get a chrome one, you're gonna see it from above, but from the side profile, it'll really clean up that tank. That's essentially what Harley has done on your CVO. So again, as it should be, the dash on this, low profile, really clean looking, obviously a little nicer, but they've done that flush mount gas cap. So from the side, you can barely see it stick off that tank. And that one being black really blends in well to keep this bike really clean versus just the normal gas cap that sticks off. Both 6-gallon tanks, like I said guys, almost the same bike, but a ton of differences. So all your big stuff like that is gonna be the exact same. So on your handlebars, the grips that they put on these bikes, in my opinion, were designed to be taken off. These weren't designed to be your full-time grip, but grips are very subjective, man. People like different stuff, different styles, different feels, different textures. So I think Harley was right to just go with a real cheap grip, not drive the price up on these bikes. That way you can choose whichever ones you want. You'll see your controls, I mean, buttons, fit and finish is good. That's one thing I will say is anytime I get on a non-Harley bike, I'm not strictly die-hard Harley guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I will say Harley's controls, the fit and finishing stuff, the housings of the controls are so much better than pretty much anything I've been on or anything that comes to mind anyway. We do need to give them some credit for that because those are really, really nice. So you jump over here to your CVO, you'll see we have the same controls with the exception of you do have an intercom, so that's this extra button here that you'll see. But they've gone ahead and put some really nice grips on here. Now even when it's hot, I ride in gloves. I ride in like a light little motocross style glove. It just feels better to me. So this wouldn't be an issue for me. However, if you don't ride in gloves, one thing I want to point out to you guys is metal, 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 which is nice, feels nice, looks nice, but if you park this bike in the sun on a hot summer day, that's going to burn your hands. So keep that in mind. Another thing, being a CVO, $40,000 bike, you do get heated grips. None of my personal bikes have ever had heated grips. I don't knock them if you've got them. I mean, there's been times where I'm sure it would have come in handy for me. I just go with a little bit thicker glove. I was curious when I heard about the whole clutch debacle, Harley going back to the cable clutch from the hydraulic clutch, if CVO models would keep the hydraulic. I was hoping they were. I prefer the feel of a hydraulic, although I don't have 40 grand to buy a CVO, so I guess it doesn't really matter. You did get the cable on the CVO as well as the special and every other touring bike that's gone back to the cable clutch. So moving on back to the seat, this is one of the places where you're going to notice the biggest difference in the fit and finish on these two bikes. I put maybe 15,000 miles on one of these stock seats and had no trouble with it, except for something that I think is more personal to me is that my butt is a little more sensitive to heat than some people's apparently. So all I did was take my seat off, real easy to do. It's just that one little screw right there. And then you got to pop this little thing off, which I had taken off of mine anyway. And then I lined the bottom of my seat with that heat reflective tape, so it would kind of keep some of that engine heat from transferring up into my seat. No one else I know has ever complained about that, and when I talk about that, they say it's never bothered them. So I think I'm just a little more sensitive to that. But you look at the seat over here on the CVO, and this thing is shaped to fit. I like that it's a little flatter here. It lets your legs get a little closer to the bike, which gives you more leverage. Obviously, looks wise, try to get them both in the same frame. This thing looks so much better. You get the nice metal Harley Davidson thing. It's pretty tucked in there, but again, with the heat and the sun, just be careful of that. That may suck. So this seat looks like it's perforated. I don't know if that would be good or not. It seems like it would be good for airflow, but then bad if it was to get wet, it would hold water. Whereas right now, you know, if your seat gets wet, you can wipe it off, you're good. So I guess it's probably good that those holes don't actually go through. Then your passenger pillion, you can see, is separate from the seat, two separate pieces. You just unscrew your screw here. There's another screw for that front seat. Whereas your Street Glide Special is a one-piece design here. And that's not a bad looking seat, honestly. Like I said, I mean, I think the last Street Glide I had, I kept the stock seat on there the whole time. Now, having ridden, you know, on custom seats so much since then, I would definitely spend the money. I know seats can get spendy. You can spend up to about $1,000 on a really good seat. You don't have to, but I've seen them go for up to $1,000. It makes a big difference. Think about it. You know, you're sitting down the whole time you're riding the bike. Go ahead, spend the money, get a good seat, especially if you've got a passenger, because then you're not just doing it for you. So like we talked about, you do get the speakers in your bag lids on the CVO. Obviously you don't on the Special. These things sound good, they look good, they are waterproof. I've heard a lot of people ask that, which seems silly to me, because if they weren't, how do you wash it? What do you do if you get caught in the rain? I know it seems counterintuitive for these to get wet, but think of them like boat speakers. They are designed to be waterproof, watertight. They keep the water out of your bag, so you don't have to worry about any of that. You don't really lose a whole lot of space. You can see it's right at the depth of the bag lid, so it's not taking up a lot of space. Plus you're getting all the extra sound. Obviously with all the speakers, you do get an extra amp here. Both of these bags are stretched, so it's gonna be the same bag, just painted different. So same storage capacity. The difference being in your CVO, you're gonna get these bags that are the shape of the saddlebag. So if you're traveling, it's just an easier way to put stuff in it, and it keeps you in check, I've found. So you can't overpack, because you know, pretty much if you can't zip that bag up, that inside bag, then your saddlebag's probably not gonna be able to close. So it's just a nice way to store that. That box just contains your headset. You do get, oh, we locked it up. You do get the nicer key fob on here. It's got the flip out barrel key, lock and unlock for your saddlebags, as well as setting the security on the bike. This thing feels really premium. It looks nice. It's not overly big or unnecessarily big. I really like the CVO key that they did on that. Let's see. And just for a comparison, if you're not a Harley person or haven't owned a lot of different bikes, you may not have seen. So this is your regular security fob that you get on any Harley Davidson that has security on it. There's no button or anything to mash. You walk away from the bike, it arms. You come back up to the bike, it unarms. So basically, if this is in your pocket, you're good to go. You don't need to worry about anything. Your standard barrel keys that Harley's been doing since I was a little kid wearing diapers, I think, but you can see the difference in the CVO in that one. In this other saddlebag, obviously they give you another bag to fit the saddlebag, which is nice, but they also give you this really high-end bike cover. So these things are super nice. The bike covers that Harley sells that you can buy aftermarket, just kind of generic, those are nice, they're durable, but this is a really premium looking bike cover. Looks nice, so if you want to cover it up, say when it's in your garage, just to keep dust off and stuff, please, if you can help it, do not keep your motorcycles outside, guys, even with the bike cover on. Rain's still bouncing off the ground, the weather still gets to them, the wind kind of blows the cover around, kind of rubs some, you know, raw spots on your paint. If at all possible, do not keep your bikes outside. I know sometimes there's no way around it, but do the best you can to keep it out of the weather. That's going to keep your bike looking nicer. It's going to help your trade value, resale value, whatever you want to do. Just good idea to keep it out of the weather, but that cover's great. Like I said, if it's in the garage and you just want to keep dust off of it so you don't have to clean it every time you're getting ready to ride, although I don't know that I've ever cleaned my bikes before a ride, I just clean it when I've got some time. So we pointed out the difference in grips. Those match the same collection, so you see they've done these really nice floorboards. You get the nice shifter with the rubber there. Your passenger pegs are really nice. And then on this end, these are not bad. I also like to change these, but I've ridden with them stock plenty, and on certain bikes just never changed them at all. They don't look terrible. Your feet go on them, guys. At the end of the day, doesn't really matter. This is much more premium. Yes, I will agree. It looks a lot better. However, those are fine. I just change these out. If I change out floorboards, I change some that my feet don't slide on as much, say when they're wet and whatnot. These passenger pegs, again, not bad. They feel pretty good. These particular ones are chrome. If you get the blacked out special, they're gonna be black. They don't look bad. They match the front. But one thing I do want to point out is, say, like your shift linkage here, you see you use nice chrome fasteners. You've got this nice black coated shift shaft here. Whereas when we go over on the special, I mean, I guess it's semi-polished, but it's just more of a raw metal, not nearly as premium looking. Same thing with your shifter. Also, you do not get a hill shifter on the touring bikes anymore, apparently, unless you want to spend $40,000. So that's a really expensive hill shifter. I hate them, I take them off. I would give you one if I had one laying around, just because I personally don't use them. I just want to get it out of the way. But I know a lot of the old school guys really like their hill shifter. Engine guard gonna be the same on both bikes, which I do like the smaller engine guard. You do get that really nice chin spoiler on the CVO, whereas again, not bad, but you know, just a plain black plastic, not quite as big and as nice as the one on the CVO. So we talked lighting on the front of these bikes. We'll show you the lighting on the back. You do have your little lights down here, as well as your turn signals and brake lights integrated into one. I really like when motorcycle manufacturers do that and don't add unnecessary lights. There's no reason that you can't put the two together, and it keeps the back of this bike fairly clean. But on your CVO, you get these nice, long, really clean. Again, same built into one, but just looks a lot better. Keeps the center of that fender clean without this chrome bracket. And then on the back, on your exhaust, like we said, same stretch bag, so you're gonna have the same cutouts. I'm not the biggest fan of the stretch bags, only because I prefer 2-into-1 pipes, so I don't have a pipe on the left side, which leaves a cutout for no reason, which just looks kind of funny. Not the biggest deal in the world. On your CVO, you're gonna see they do put these nice Harley branded tips on there. Looks really good. However, this is a factory exhaust, so extremely quiet regardless. You're probably gonna end up changing those out anyway. So one of the big things that you're paying for on the CVO is this paint job. I'm normally not the biggest fan of CVO paint jobs. They've just been a little too loud or over the top for me in the past. However, this year, like the bronze armor that they did, that kind of greenish, tannish, whatever looking color that is, just solid color. I know a lot of people said, hey, that's a CVO, it should have more pop than that. They didn't like it. I personally love that, and I also really like this one. Out of the CVO Street Glides, this one's definitely gonna be my favorite of the three, and it's hard to pick up in the video, but you've got really fine metal flake in all the red as well as the white, whereas the black is just a normal gloss black. So I like the contrast, and I think they did just the right amount of black, white, and red on this bike to really make it pop. Now there are two-tone color options in the Street Glide Special. The Gauntlet Gray and Vivid Black colorway. To myself and a lot of other people, they said, hey, that kind of looks like a CVO from a distance, and it does. Look up the Gauntlet Gray Vivid Black Street Glide Special. Check out those pictures and tell me that doesn't look like, you know, a calm down paint job on a CVO. But the paint on these CVOs, guys, is next level. Another thing, you know, we talked about Harley being so good about their fit and finish on their controls. Paint, Harley, even on like their standard models, any bike Harley puts out, even their little Sportsters and stuff, the paint department is where they really shine and excel over other manufacturers. And I think everyone would agree, whether you love Harley, hate Harley, you have to admit their fit and finish, even on their lower end models, is much better. Now, you do pay more for Harleys than other brands, but again, just like we're comparing these two bikes, that's what you're paying for, is a much more premium, refined product. Now, we do need to talk about, to me, what's the biggest change in the two, the 117 over the 114. Doesn't sound like a lot, and honestly, the 114 has got so much freaking power. All the Harleys nowadays, like the Street Glide Standard with the 107, dude, those bikes are so good out of the box. That 107, I had a 103 that I did full stage 1-2, so we tuned it, had it on the dyno for like 6 hours, full exhaust, different air cleaner and stuff. That stock 107 still made more power and was noticeably, you know, better, smoother, quieter than my 103. So all these new motors have plenty of power. At this point, we're just adding power to say we've got more. You are gonna get a little bit more on the 117. Obviously it comes with that air cleaner. I know that was popular on like a lot of the choppers and stuff, with this little elbow that sweeps it out to collect a little bit more wind. Normally I don't like that style, but on these CVO bikes, man, I really do like the air cleaner. I think they did a great job. However, we've got the sock on here right now, but you take that rain sock off, that looks pretty dang good, especially with that chrome and the light. Looks really good. So you get this black textured finish on the engine, whereas on your CVOs for a long time you've got this gray. I like the gray. I think it looks really good, especially against that black, but that doesn't look bad. So obviously, just for, you know, pure cubic inch wise, your CVO a little bit bigger, and to me a little bit better. However, wouldn't justify the cost alone. Just one more piece of the puzzle that's kind of getting us to that $13,000 gap. Now, like I said, I would change my exhaust, especially on these stock exhausts. They're quiet, and people have commented on my videos, or I've heard it when I've been in the dealerships. They say, man, that's really quiet for a Harley. That's based on emissions, guys. Trust me. I'm sure if Harley could make them, now they wouldn't make them, you know, blow your eardrums out from the factory, because not everybody's looking for that, and some people actually like the stock sound. But they're quiet based on emission regulations, which are constantly like getting tighter and tighter. So Harley's having to choke these bikes down a little more and a little more just so they can meet those emission regulations. So keep that in mind. But regardless, I like those bronze heat shields that they do on this bike, although I'd swap the exhaust and they would be gone. Looks good. Harley did good. And for a lot of people, man, they're just going to change the mufflers on the back end, so you could spend anywhere from $500 to $1,000 to do that. Get all the sound you want and not have to change the head pipe, not have to retune the bike, and then you can maintain all those heat shields that look so good. All right, so we've gone over these bikes in pretty good detail. I'll give you one last look, try to fit both of them in the frame. Now, before I tell you which one I would lean towards, I'd love for you guys to leave a comment down below. Let me know which one you're going with and why. I get the CVO is super nice, $13,000 price difference. Which, I mean, ultimately, if you're building that Street Glide Special and your goal is to end up with something like this, with this really nice paint, all this stuff, you're not going to be able to do it for $13,000. Trust me. I see people come in here and do that all the time. So engine, paint, all this stuff, it's just not going to happen. Okay, so let's try to summarize this the best that we can. If you've watched any of my other Versus videos, you know a lot of time it comes down to you personally, what you're going to be doing with the bike, what your end goals are. This one, no different, guys. Depends on your end goal. So if your end goal is to end up with this, start with this. Definitely don't start with this, because like we said in the beginning of the video, roughly a $13,500 difference in the two. However, you're not going to turn this into that for anywhere close to that amount of money. Even just the paint, guys, just the paint alone is going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars just to get to that point. So if your end goal is to end up with the best fit and finish, all the floorboard collection, new seat, speakers in the bags, bigger motor, all this stuff, just go ahead and get the CVO. It is worth it. They're doing less CVOs than they've done in the past, so they are a little more exclusive, especially right now. As you know, if you're watching this video and you've tried to get a CVO, it's hard. I'm super surprised this one wasn't sold before it got here. That's why it's taken so long to do a video on the CVO, period. Is every time we get one, or we see that we have one on the way, someone puts a deposit on it, or they just go ahead and buy it outright. So as soon as it comes off the truck, it gets assembled, you know, checked out in the back, cleaned up, and it goes right out the back door, never even makes it to the showroom. So they are pretty hard to get. However, any bike is hard to get. As you can see, if you've been to a dealership, most of their showrooms are pretty bare right now. And that's just based on everything that's going on. However, If you don't care about a lot of things that this bike has, you know, say the gauge cluster and whatnot, like it's nice, but you don't have to have it, and you keep finding little things like that say, well, it's nice, but I don't really need that, or that's not really important to me, then look at this bike with a $13,500 bag of cash in your hand and say, what would I do to this to make it mine? Now, you may be a performance bagger guy and you want to dump all that money into the suspension, the engine, the braking of this bike. You're going to have plenty of cash to do that. You're going to have your performance bagger. If you're into the big wheel thing, you want to put a bigger wheel and a fitted front fender on this thing, you've got some cash to do that. If you want to do air ride suspension, whatever it is you want to do, 13 grand is a lot of money to play with to turn this thing into your own personal bike. So for me personally, I'm probably going to go with the special, and I would go with the special over the standard. I thought about including one of those so we could compare the three, but that would just make this video entirely too long. I did compare the standard and the special in a separate video. I'll put that link down in the description if you want to check that out. My choice was the special over the standard, and in this situation, I'm personally choosing the special over the CVO, and that's just because with that $13,000, I'm going to do a lot more to this to make it more mine than what I'm going to spend on this and still not quite have the bike that I want. Let me know down in the comments which one you would choose and why, or if you're already riding one of the two bikes, let me know why you chose that one. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you next time.